Hey everybody, welcome back to Stamping School. Last week I showed a card on my blog, this one right here, and I said I'd be back this week to do a video with the squirrel and a couple other ones with this little squirrel bundle. So it's in the holiday Stampin' Up! Catalog, which started September 4th. By the way, if you were expecting one from me and you did not get it, please let me know. There was really wonky stuff going on with the mailing selector this year. So a few people did not get theirs, and they were supposed to, but I don't know who did and who didn't unless you let me know. So drop me an email, linda@stampingschool.com. Let me know. If you ordered within the last year, you should have gotten one automatically. So, but on page 49, this is the little bundle. Fluffy Squirrel. It comes with well, you can get the punch with it as a bundle if you want. Like I said, page 49, they got some cute samples here. Let me show you what's in the bundle and what's in the stamp set. So there are a few sentiments. I felt like they could have gone a little further with the sentiments for the squirrel. So many different squirrel sayings that we could do, but go nuts, it's your birthday, that's cute. May you gather happiness, which actually works for Thanksgiving in my opinion. And can't wait to see you again. And I didn't get that at first. And then I think Matt said, well, you know, they hide their nuts in the ground somewhere and then they go and find them. So I can't wait to see you again. It was like, that was a stretch, but I get it. So there's a little flower, and then there's a little crosshatch guy, like for the top of a large acorn, a present, a little acorn, and a little stump that they can stand on. And they are two-stepping, little two-step squirrels. So I kind of played around with different colors. As you know, I did not do a black squirrel, although we used to have those in Michigan. But I did gray granite as the base, and then there's the basic gray, so that's what he looks like for the punch. Pecan pie and espresso, pecan pie and crumb cake, basic gray and smoky slate, which that one would probably look better with black and the smoky slate to make him pop a little bit better. And then of course, like a fox squirrel, the Cajun craze, and the black. And then of course, where we live, we have, in North Carolina, we have white squirrels. And they're not albino squirrels, they're leucistic. So they had a gene that carries through in the gray squirrels. And so every once in a while, they get one white squirrel and a bunch of gray squirrels. And they're like little unicorns around here. And there's a big festival every year in Brevard. Here's a picture of one. My neighbor Stefan took this one near us in the woods behind us. But they are white, and they typically have like a little black or gray stripe or a little spot on their head. And they're just, like I said, they're so fun to see. They're just adorable. And their eyes are dark, whereas an albino squirrel would have red eyes. These, the leucistic ones, have dark eyes. And they're just like little squirrels that hang out with all the other gray squirrels. A couple years ago, we had squirrels. So if you have these squirrels from a few years ago, I made this little nut box. I found it. I still had it, surprisingly. Anyway, I'd stamped on the velvet. But if you still have these squirrels, get them out because they're really a lot of fun. And hopefully you can use your squirrels with the layouts that I'm doing today. And if you want squirrels and you don't have them, I think it's $41.25 for the stamp set and the punch. Now, it goes to note that only one of these punches out. So the one that faces that way is the one that punches. The other one here, which I'll show you in one of the cards, you have to fussy cut him out. It's not even like he's an exact mirror image of that. The punch does not work on him. He's a whole different squirrel. So. All right, let's start with this one. This is the one I had on my blog last week. I'm using the Gathering Together designer papers. So there's got this pretty background, but of course you could just use a blue sky even, which would be great. You could do like a light balmy blue or a pool party behind here. And I've just got some of that designer paper down the bottom. And then up here on the back of that, there's this little designer paper. You could just use espresso, but I'm gonna punch a hole. This is the 1 1/4 inch circle punch. I'm gonna punch it right about there for the hole in his tree, which is actually a banner. And then to make the banners, you can just fussy cut it. But what I like to use is one of these banner dies. Now, of course, you can run it through and cut it, but on something like this that's a little bit skinnier, I just use it as a template, and I will sort of like a stencil, and you can use a pen, or sometimes I just use my pokey tool and just make a little mark, and then I can just cut them. Now, if you don't want to do any of that, you can just come right up in the center, and then you're going to come across and across. And what typically happens is I'm off a little bit. So I tend to use all of these different banners to make that, because I want them to match up. So I did the same thing on this little piece here. And you can do different shapes too. So if you have like this shape, you can put that down, it's just a little bit wider. So you can also use a square and just put that in the corner. So lots of ways you can make your own little template. So I'm gonna put this here, but it needs to pop up a little bit so I can put my squirrel in there. So I just have 3 little dimensionals here. Pop that up at the top, oops. All right, now for the squirrels. This one, I already stamped and fussy cut. That's the one that goes in the different direction. So he can just kind of squeeze in down there like that. I'm gonna stick a little dimensional behind his tail so he doesn't go anywhere. There we go. And this guy, we'll stamp him in, I could do this one in crumb cake. I think that one's pecan pie. So we're gonna stamp him close to the bottom, and then espresso for the outline. It doesn't really matter which one you do first. I have stamped them each way. I prefer to do the outline on top. So where his belly is there's not gonna be any ink. So you kind of have to move him over, line up his foot and his ear, and there he is. Isn't he cute? Now this will also punch out the nut at the same time, although you don't have to do that. To me, it's easier to do it later with a little skinny piece of paper. Or if you save this, you can take the little acorn stamp, and if you're careful, you can just line that up and stamp it like that. See? Super easy. So then I don't have to show you the rest of this. I'm sure you're gonna get it. So this is the squirrel up with dimensionals. We're gonna have another little acorn right here, like that. These little leaves I cut from the designer paper because I don't have any little leaves from that gathering together. And then I used the May You Gather Happiness with this little circle die. That's from the traditional labels, which I'm really enjoying this die set. That's in the mini catalog, I think page 23. Even if you don't get the sentiments with it, I really like it. And these, if you have photopolymer stamps, you can just sort of curve them in to fit perfectly. That's that one. A few little sequins around there, and that is good to go. I am gonna add a little bow right here. I had one and I think it fell off, so I'm gonna add a little twine bow on his acorn. Now this one is just a cute little birthday happy thing. This little Snickers pecans, or you can put a little trail mix, you can put something in here. I sort of made the package based on the candy bar, which has been sitting around here for over a week, and Matt says, when are we gonna eat this? I said, after the video. Let me show you how to do that. This is a variation of a 2468 box, but I'm making it smaller. Oh, by the way, I printed this card off. This is a really, really great card by Amanda Mertz, and it printed blue, but it's actually a white card base, and she just did this little strip. It might even be designer paper right here with the squirrel punched, a couple little embellishments, and then the sentiment here. I thought that is so darn cute. I'm gonna make one of those. So simple and so easy. So I've got my scoreboard here. The box starts at 5.5 by 6.5. That's the piece of paper. This is a little bit of Cajun Craze paper. 5.5 by 6.5. The measurements are below in the description. There's a link to the PDF for all the projects. They'll be all in one PDF. So you're going to score every 1.5 inches. 1.5 and 3 and 4.5 and 6. And that leaves you a little tab to glue. And then turn it this way and score at 1.5. that's the box. And if you want to make it bigger, then you can score 2, 4, 6, 8. So you can make your box, 3, 6, 9. As long as they're all equal and the panel at the bottom is the same size, you're good. You can make your box any size that you want. Now, before we put it all together, I put this designer paper on. This is a 2-inch piece of designer paper. And it's 2 by 6, and I stopped it right before this since that's going to be the glue. So 2 by 6 works out great for the papers. And tape it on or glue it on, and then go back and score again, just right here, 1.5, 3, 4.5, and 6. Okay, I'll do that one. But just so that it's gonna bend nicely. This is easier than trying to put it on afterwards. And if you want this little band, I did a little espresso band. If you want that, you probably can put that on now also before we put the whole box together. So right down here at the bottom, I'll show you on this one, you're gonna cut up to the line for your bottom flaps, just like this. Here, like that, to the center. And then you can take this off. You can just cut that off if you want, just to get rid of some of the bulk. Now I would use sticky strip on this little 1-inch panel here, but for time I'll just do this glue, fold it across, okay? And there's your box, and then just put these together. Put a little bit of tape or glue on each panel. The last one, you put a little bit more glue on. And there it is. A cute little column, I suppose. And then I've got a little strip of the designer paper on espresso, and I just glued that to the inside, and I added a couple little metal embellishments to make it look like it's tacked on, but really they're just stuck on, and this is glued to the inside. Just 1.5-inch strip, right like that. And then punched a squirrel, added a little stool, a little stump right there. And now the sign I just did on crumb cake, and I wanted it to look a little bit more rustic. You could make it a little banner, that'd be really cute. But I didn't want it perfect, so just kind of cut it like that and that, glue it together. And then I put a little ink on it to make it look good. And then I ran it through, the whole thing, ran it through a wood grain embossing folder, just to give it a little bit of texture. But when I look at it now, I think it could have been a banner. It might have been cuter. So, but that's just a fun little thing to put on your coworker's desk or give somebody if you know it's their birthday. There's that one. One more. All right. So this embossing folder is very pretty for the winter or Christmas or holidays. It's on page 33, and it is part of the Peaceful Garden Suite. I just always buy all the embossing folders, even if I don't buy the bundles. I just buy the embossing folders because I love them so much. But what I didn't realize is that these dies in here match the inside. So I'm probably going to get the doves, and so I can have these dies to go in this embossing folder. But until I get it, well, what I did is I ran it through in white. I turned it upside down, and then I fussy cut that out. So I made my own little die right there. So I ran this through in the Cajun Craze, which just seems like a real fall thing happening right now. I stamped the May You Gather Happiness, and then I added just a little bit of balmy blue back here, just to kind of take up the starkness of the white. I might even do just a little bit of flicking, just a wee bit. Just add a little splatter right there to take up that, so it doesn't look so stark. By the way, if you're going to emboss the full card like this one is, what you can do is you put it inside the folder, make sure that the logo is facing you, and there's a little line right here that kind of helps with keeping everything straight. But this one, because I'm doing the whole card, will dip just a little bit below. So as you come here, now you can run the whole thing through and it'll emboss the other side, but if you don't want that, if you open this up, hold on to it, and you're gonna lower down just that piece. So your card will be hanging over. And because this is a thick embossing folder, you're gonna need the number 4 plate or like the blue plate that we used to have. They both work. And just stop the plate short so you don't get that mark right here. So as it goes through the machine, see how it's a little bit shorter than the end of that, so it won't give you that crease right there, but it'll still emboss all the way down, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm gonna add this to the center. Now, of course, I could do any other shape in here and it would still look nice, but I am gonna get those dies because I think that they would layer nicely. Looks like there's 2 of them that I can, you know, do a double layer here. We're gonna stamp 3 little, oops, I missed that. There we go. Ooh. I'm gonna stamp 3 of these little guys down here, like that. I'll color those in. On these acorns, I think I will do the Darling Duckling, which is sort of like a brownish yellow almost, kind of like the old Hello Honey was, or Summer Starfruit. It's very close to that, sort of a muddy color. When you're coloring in, leave a little bit of white in there. Don't color it in completely. Just do a little scribble. We're gonna add the little stool, and we're gonna add a squirrel. I'm gonna add 1 more little nut. This one, though, I'm gonna do in the Cajun Craze, right there. And then I think I'm gonna add a little bit of ribbon. Change of plans. I was gonna add the Darling Duckling, but I'm not. I'm gonna use this really cool new ribbon. Even they don't know what to call it. It's called Irregular Weave. It's just, it sort of feels like wood almost. So I'm gonna bring this up. So I don't want the glue to show through. So I'm gonna bring it through the bottom here and then trim it off. Since it's very sturdy, I'm just gonna let it sit there. I'm gonna do a little slot on each end. I hope we still have this punch. It's a great little punch. And then just feed this through like that. Just to give it a little more interest right there. And then we can add the squirrels and we'll be done. All right, a few sequins I'll put on there. Got the squirrel. I might add, this is what happens when I don't plan it out completely before I sit down, which is not like me. But I think what I'm gonna do is add some of this across the back so it pops that center line just a little bit more. So I'll show you the completed project. Okay, I'm back, that's better. I did the plaid in there instead and fed it through the tag. So, much better, all right. And these little Cajun Craze dots, Cajun Craze in gold, are really pretty. They've got little flecks of gold. They are a bit high though. I mean, you might have to be careful if you're mailing them. They got a good amount of height on them, but they're so pretty I had to use them. All right, that's it for the squirrel this week. Go nuts, go get the squirrel and the punch. I have the recipes up for you and we'll see you next time. See it, learn it, stamp it.